Hello and welcome back to Games Embassy with the original Masters of Gaming. I am one of your two original hosts, Ambassador Chris.
And I'm Ambassador Michael, the second original host. The OGs.
Yeah, we
the
are.
AGs, some would say. Ambassador
Gangsters, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And welcome to our corner of the internet where we have news about stuff. Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I have a side-splitting headache, but otherwise I'm pretty good. You and I did the script. It only took 30 more minutes than I anticipated. I've been doing the script for literally 2 hours. So that was fun.
I'm hearing some sounds.
Yeah, my wife just got a phone call, so she needed to walk out of the living room.
Okay.
So.
That's fine.
Anyways, how have you been? Things have been good, or is your life still constant despair?
My life's not constant despair, just sometimes despair. I've been despairing over Magnemite not being in Pokemon, which has made me kind of sad.
I can't wait to just be upset by all the Pokemon that are not in it.
Let's just say I keep the toaster close to the bathtub just in case.
Just in case. Well, I just miss one too much.
With an extension cord, I can just fry myself.
Great. Freely. That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyways,
if you want to support the toaster dreams, buy new toasters, new extension cords, just in case. That way it's foolproof. You can support us on Patreon. We have a lot of cool stuff going on over there. We have exclusives. You get early access to this show. You will get it. You get it 3 days early. You get it on Monday. Sometimes you get it on Sunday night, depending on whether or not I'm feeling like actually putting it on Monday morning, whatever. You get the pre-show, which we recorded a little bit earlier, which is just us speaking nonsense and talking about the show, getting ready, all that kind of stuff. And then you get early access to group chat, which you guys recorded last week. I haven't put it up yet, but we're going through the editing process. How'd you feel that went?
I still think group chat needs some tuning. Some people still are in the news mode.
Right.
And aren't in the opinionated, casual
conversation
mode. So, but it's a new show. So
it's very experimental.
We're still working it out. Let's just say for me, it needs to differentiate itself more from Games Embassy.
I would agree with that. The whole point is for it to just be the I guess more traditional, what people are looking for in terms of podcasts, in terms of it being like more topical instead of this being more about news and discussion. So
anyway, Mike needs that money.
I do. Also, it's not cheap to run ambassadors. So the less money I have to hemorrhage personally is great. But anyways, you don't care about that. There's good content over there. Adam just recorded his video for patrons. It's all about the games he is very thankful for, which I thought was a fitting theme for the month. So that's going to be out soon. And yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff going on the Patreon. And then we have some other good stuff going on the YouTube channel for those of you who don't want to pay. So
yeah.
Yep. Anyways, that's pretty much it. So yeah, if you want to support us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/ambassadors of gaming. And you can go as low as literally $1. So there you go.
Yes. Let Mike get his weekly McDouble, please.
Oh.
Or I'm sorry, McChicken. The McChickens are the ones that are $1.
Yeah, the McDouble is now a more expensive, high class than the dollar menu.
So anyway, here's some updates, announcements, and other miscellaneous news.
Sure.
Bethesda announces a new bug for announces a new studio. Human, do you like that? I thought that was pretty good.
I did.
Okay, thank you. Human Head Studios, which closed down on November 13th, has had an entire team brought over from Bethesda under a new studio, Roundhouse Studios.
Real quick, I need to ask you this because I thought it was weird. It's not really elaborated here, but basically the studio was like, okay, here's our current game. It's out now. And then they're like, okay, well, we're closing our studio. And then we're all moving to Bethesda. Is that weird? Because I feel like it's a little weird.
That normally doesn't happen right after you release a game, but I mean,
right. I mean, worst case, usually you just get bought out.
That's a strange timeline.
Right. Like they basically just bought all of the people there without having to buy out the studio. Anyways, I just thought it was super weird. So, and to give a little bit of context. Anyways, let's talk about everyone's favorite game of 2019, Anthem. Anthem is getting a winter seasonal event. The event is going to cover the landscape in snow and bring some new items to the game. Reportedly, the event will increase encounters with outlaws, snow globe storms. I don't know what that is. Is that like an environment thing?
I don't know. I gave up on Anthem so early.
Fair enough. And a stronghold with a new score system that will allow players to earn more crystals and winter-themed rewards. That sounds like something like Diablo related or something like that. More arcadey. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. So going on to game announcements and release dates, Ninja Theory's Bleeding Edge is releasing on March 30th. For those who pre-ordered on
pre-order on Game Pass. I said the same thing. I was like, what? I just wanted to see what your reaction would be to that. I don't know how you pre-order on Game Pass.
For those who pre-order on Game Pass, will get access to the closed beta on February 14th and the second one on March 13th.
Yeah, I don't know about this game. We'll see. It's coming to Game Pass. So anyways, more Game Pass announcements. XO19 happened, so there's lots of Xbox news, Game Pass news. We're breaking it up. So finally, no pun intended, Final Fantasy and many other games are coming to Game Pass. So not only are they on Xbox, they're also coming to Game Pass. Wonderful news. Final Fantasy 7 through Final Fantasy 15, excluding the MMO 11 and 14, are coming to Game Pass. Phil Spencer also mentioned that they are going to be bringing Final Fantasy 14 to Xbox with Square Enix. In case you are unaware, basically the big issue is the Final Fantasy 14 servers are basically entwined with PlayStation. So they were already crossplay. And when PlayStation said no crossplay, it basically meant the game was dead to coming to Xbox. They couldn't basically bring it because of PlayStation holding them back. But now that it's open, they could do that. So that's very exciting news for Xbox players. Additionally, Witcher 3, arguably probably the biggest RPG this gen, is coming to Game Pass along with Yakuza, which we talked about earlier is a big deal because Yakuza was basically free exclusive for PlayStation. So it's really good news that they're finally getting over to Xbox. And more Japanese games are also coming to Xbox, including Kingdom Hearts collections. All the ones prior to 3 are coming to Xbox. We were a little bit confused on some. I think they're not coming to Game Pass, but we're also not sure they're
coming to Game Pass. We just know they're coming to Xbox one way or another.
A little murky right now. I'm sure we'll get clarification one way or another from Square Enix on Xbox eventually. But yeah, so that's all the big Game Pass games. Off the bat, they did announce basically 50 plus games coming in the next year to Game Pass. So if you want to check out that full list, it's over on I think Eurogamers where we pulled it from.
I know I criticized Game Pass at first because I don't like that. I don't like the subscription model. I've never liked the subscription model ever.
Fair enough.
But they sure are bringing a lot of stuff to it. I can't ignore it.
Right.
There was a lot of stuff there.
What was the game called? Oh, Creature in the Well. Creature in the Well is probably one of the best games I played this year, and I wouldn't have even known it existed unless it was on Game Pass. Because I just happened to see it on Game Pass. I was just scrolling to try to find something new to play, and that's probably one of the games I've had the most fun with this year. So it's definitely pulling in people to different games and definitely worth the money. I constantly every month feel like my $10 or whatever is worth it. So.
Yeah. So Xbox held its annual XO conference and revealed stuff for the company. xClouds definitely get xCloud. Now there's not multiple of them. Right. A single cloud of X gets big announcements. Windows 10 PC will receive xCloud. Mm-hmm. xCloud will support other Bluetooth controllers, including the DualShock 4. I'm sure that's just out of spite for PlayStation. And on Xbox, it will actually be coming with Game Pass, which definitely was a mind blower for me.
Yeah, that's huge news to me. They just are just throw all the good stuff into Game Pass, just make it more valuable. So they're definitely putting the pressure on. So Phil Spencer during this also got interviewed, and obviously he talked a bit about Project Scarlet. While it wasn't part of the presentation, he, obviously got some questions, and so he gave us some answers and some more insight. The console will not, according to Spencer, be out of position on power or price. Spencer mentions the failings of the Xbox One launch, including price and power, specifically talking about the Xbox One being $100 more and being outpaced by the original PS4. Spencer goes on to mention that Xbox wants to go all in and that they feel being on board with crossplay and backwards compatibility is the right way forward with that and being competitive. The Verge also asked Spencer about the multiple consoles, which we haven't heard from a long time. We've even heard rumors that it's dead, basically, at this point. And Spencer replied to that saying, quote, "We will talk about the SKU lineup and how it works. I think the root principle of we don't want to confuse people. We share that." That is his direct quote, by the way. I didn't just like butcher that in writing. That's exactly what he said to The Verge. So we talked about this before when they announced xCloud. We're like, what's the point of a streaming console if you just have a streaming platform? But whatever.
Like a media box. Xbox One gets its November update with all sorts of new features. Google Assistant is being added to Xbox One as a replacement for Cortana, so you have a different thing to go into your menu and shut off.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And the gamer tag improvements are including new languages.
Which is pretty cool. We talked about this a little bit before the show, but like I would be extremely annoyed if I just couldn't like type in my language. We take for granted that English is like widely adapted and that we're ignorant enough to not learn other people's languages. So it's good that they're finally getting, some support. But Spencer talked about Game Pass again and specifically saying that it's the antidote to everything needing to be a live service game. So Spencer believes that Game Pass is critical to bring in new games to new players. And Spencer also said that they see players taking risks on new games and genres on Game Pass that those players would not normally play.
I can see that. That makes a lot of sense because there are plenty of games because you got Game Pass. And although I haven't used it, I'm sure I could go into that Game Pass menu right now and find something that I'd be willing to play that I would never be willing to, like, just if I saw it at a GameStop or something or on the online price, like be willing to buy it
for $5 or whatever. Yeah. So that's where I've been at. Like I said earlier, Creature in the Well is probably one of the best games I've played this year. And I only found it because of Game Pass. I didn't even know it was coming out. And we do this show where we talk about games coming out, I write the script every week and it was not even on my radar. So, XO19 was, I think, actually pretty big for them. They had a lot of really good announcements. The Game Pass xCloud coming to Game Pass is big. It pretty much puts the pressure on Stadia and PlayStation Now because PlayStation, we talked about earlier, is a streaming service already. So they're like, okay, we're just going to make what we have that is download only and works really well also stream. So even if they charged me more, even if it was like a separate tier of the Game Pass, I would be more inclined to buy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think Xbox in general is Spencer's taking Xbox in the right direction. I'm glad that, rather than saying, oh, it wasn't the one launch wasn't part of my regime, it's not any reflection on me. I think that he's working really hard to make Xbox be the powerhouse that it was during the previous generation.
Right. I wish I had the quote in front of me, but he does refer to Xbox as we during that time frame. So he includes himself in that that time frame when Xbox wasn't doing so well. And I believe he was working at Xbox already. He got promoted from somewhere else when the old CEO stepped down or whatever. So he was technically a part of Xbox already. So he was a part of the system that provided that console, Yeah. But I'm glad that he seems to be making the right decisions with the right teams, and Xbox is really kind of getting it together, and they just kind of have actually a solid vision on what they want to do. So, yeah,
I'm hopeful. I think that with Spencer at the front, I'm hoping that whatever their next big console release is good. He sees, we have guides on what not to do. Don't put $100 add-on,
right?
For starters, a forced $100 add-on
for no reason. Yeah, because even if the Xbox One was bundled, it wouldn't have been a big deal. We saw Xbox One sales go up after they removed the bundle. So just that one that arrogance, I guess, to be like, no, you have to buy the Kinect, really, really hurt them. Sidebar, but related. That's why, like, when people are like, oh, the new PlayStation's gonna, like, you're gonna have to buy a bundle with whatever VR or like a camera or something, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So
if that is the case, I would laugh. I would seriously laugh and go, did you not see what happened when Microsoft forced the Kinect bundle?
Right. They would be even more stupid because you have an exact example of why that doesn't work. So we'll see.
Plus the VR would be, I feel like that'd add more than $100.
Oh, easily. Because the PSVR was $400 at launch, I think. And now it's getting reasonably priced down to like $250, $300. And if you find sometimes you'll find really good sales at like $200. So
never. I would be blown away if they have the audacity to do a forced bundle.
It would be too stupid. It would just be too stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't do that, PlayStation. But what do I know? I'm not a multi-million-dollar corporation. So
from the lowly gamers down below,
just from the guy who would buy it. You know. Anyways, yeah. So since we're talking about streaming and we've covered XO, would you like to talk about all the fun stuff Google got up to this week?
Oh boy, I sure would.
All right, great.
Google holds an AMA for Stadia, and big shock, it doesn't go well at all. While the AMA covered many topics, the glaring item that was brought up were the features that were basically promised in their reveal video. Mm-hmm. You know, when they revealed D2 would launch with it and it'll be accessed on all these platforms. But a bunch of those features actually won't be there at launch, which is strange to me.
Who's working on this? EA?
Yeah. Is this EA? Or are they going to try and sell us for some extra dollar coinage?
Maybe
that's going to happen. He said, "Don't give my ideas."
Don't worry. The Google Play cards and Google Play credit, they can take your money.
Freaking EA's on the other end of this, watching this going, "Are you writing this down?"
We're ready to launch our next bullshit thing. Yeah,
we're ready to launch our next cash cow and then apologize and say we need to be better in our community. So Here are a few examples of things that will not be included with the streaming service at launch. So for one, there's no family sharing, which I think is definitely an issue.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge issue.
That's going to be a big issue. Each account must purchase a game to play it. It's a high priority feature that we're planning to launch early next year, the company stated.
Yeah. I don't want to like interrupt, but it basically makes it dead for anybody who's not like a single person.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Or for someone who, who lives with someone who doesn't play games.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, unless you're just the sole user, this is going to screw you. But anyways, I'll stop interrupting you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. The achievements UI won't be there. So you can still earn achievements, but you actually won't be able to see them, which I think makes absolutely no sense. Wait, what is the point of an achievement UI?
Can I just draw parallels to real life? It's just like real life. You can achieve things, but you don't see them. I'm going to put the PR spin on it for you.
But that's why people validate themselves with Instagram. That's what Instagram's there for, to validate you.
Instagram is basically just the real life version of achievements.
Yes. Only it's things that you don't care about that aren't really achievements. But I digress.
Basically.
4K HDR 60 frames per second on anything other than a Chromecast Ultra will not be present.
Great.
Which doesn't really make sense to me at all, because the whole, aside from the can of worms that the cheaper, like free price point won't even be available until next year. One of the things that differentiates itself is that lower price point doesn't have 4K HDR.
Right. So basically everybody, you're going to pay for a subscription.
Yeah.
And get the standard version.
Yeah. You're going to pay for the version that will then be the beginning of next year.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
God. Anyways, continue so we can get mad.
This got me mad because I told my friend Justin that I was going to get a buddy pass just to try it, just so we can say like, hey, he tried it. the buddy pass that like where you and your friend get 3 months of Stadia free. Yeah, you don't get that, at least not initially. It'll arrive 2 weeks after the bundles are received,
which could be whenever they've said, because they're not all going out at launch. So
Stream Connect, which I don't know what that means, Mike. Help
That's
me.
the YouTube variation. So you remember like how they can interact with it or like save states, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's not launching.
You could like watch someone playing like a group game online and then launch the game directly from YouTube.
Basically, yeah. That's not happening straight away. It's happening at some point eventually, maybe.
Yeah. Also, current Chromecast Ultra devices will require a software update that's coming later. So if it's not a Chromecast that comes with the Founders Edition or the Premier Edition, no Chromecast is running it right now.
Basically.
So that's
just finish up so we can discuss.
I'm sorry, I'm sighing.
There's so much nonsense. I don't blame you.
And then, of course, we've already seen, while some may not receive all their items for Stadia at launch, you will be able to access the 12 games available to play on a Chromecast browser or the Pixel phone. So, I mean, I guess that's something. Thank goodness the game service lets you play games at launch. Thank God.
Oh, I was worried they were just going to take my money and not let me do anything.
That's when I just heard an echo of EA in the background, but I'll just leave that be.
That was the sound of EA's executives being very pleased.
Write that down.
Yeah, basically. I want to see. Hold on, give me 1 second here. I saw a Google Stadia. Okay, I was right. So real quick, just as like salt in the wound, right? So you know how they send out press kits and stuff like that typically beforehand? Yeah. So they sent out press kits for Stadia already. They're already out.
Mm-hmm.
And when they sent out the press kits for Stadia, they sent Google Pixel phones in the press kit. Like they didn't just send the controller and the Ultra.
I mean, what do you mean? Yeah, they need someone to test it. They need to so that reviewers and stuff can test how it runs on Pixel.
But yeah, I guess that's true. But that just like skyrockets your review cost. You know what I mean? Like you have to give. I don't know if you know, but the Pixel isn't cheap. It's like a $500-$600 phone base level.
Are you aware that Google is the largest tech giant on the planet?
I am aware of that, but I'm also aware of the fact that Google is very stupid. So.
Yes, but considering they're launching considering they're trying to make themselves a legitimate player in the games industry, I could totally see them saying, send them Google Pixels, send them 3 fucking Google Pixels. We just need them to test it. Like,
right.
I could totally see them if they want this to go bad enough, they will spare no expense to make sure that it has a good turnaround, or at least starts to make a profit. I guess
all of this is very stupid, right?
Yeah, like it's strange. And I was talking about this with you before when we were recording.
Right.
I feel that this should have been launched as early access because
I agree.
Yeah, because when PUBG released, I mean, given it's a game and not a game system, when PUBG released and Fortnite released, all the bugs and everything that were in there, they could just say it's early access.
Right.
You know, and unfortunately, this is the first big contender in the games industry since the original Xbox.
Right, which launched however many years ago at this point, probably close to 20.
Yeah, which launched a long time ago. And things are different now. People are used to getting when games are launched, they get their pre-download. They can play them exactly when the clock hits midnight. All of the features that are working, or at least they're supposed to be working, as long as it's not an EA game, that launch. So the fact that they're doing all of those things the wrong way, I think is definitely going to hurt them, or is at least going to make people have a bad taste in the mouth who were considering to try it after launch. Aside from the Premier and Founders Edition, people who are like, you know what, I'm not going to buy the edition, but I'll buy the thing online and play it and see how it goes. But now that all these features are kind of thing like, hey, this is launching, sort of.
Well, my big issue with Stadia as an Android user, because there's at this point, roughly you can split it down the middle. I would say roughly half the people I meet have iPhones and the other half have Android, right? It's fairly common that you see people with Android phones now. What I don't see is people with Google Pixel phones, which let me put it this way. Let's reverse it, right? And let's say Apple does this, right? Apple would never be like, oh, it just works on the highest model iPhone. It doesn't work on any other iPhone. They would never do that because it would be stupid, right? You're just like, why? Why would you
include like probably the last generation or the last two?
Yeah, as they typically do. They're like, okay, like whatever, it's coming to these specific phones, but they would never just be like, okay, you can only get it on whatever the X. Maybe they would be like, okay, maybe you can only use it on the full screen phones, the ones without the home buttons. Maybe that would happen, but like even then, there's more variations, or there's more people that own that than a Google Pixel, for example. So like, it hinders me from wanting to use it. And you're an iOS user, so you can't use it on mobile either right now. It hinders us from using it.
I have a little different of an opinion. I think that because this launch is brand new, I think that they probably need to iron out the kinks on their own native hardware, on things that they understand very well before they can start to spread it out and go, okay, now this is running on iOS or an Android systems. When they have their own, they basically have their own version that they can do all their work on, work out the kinks for on hardware and operating systems they already know very well. Right. So
I would
specifically
agree with that.
For phones, for the phone part, I totally understand that Google's going to try and get it running best at least at first on their hardware, and then they can say, okay, now that we know that this works here, you know, we have it working here, let's do the adjustments to get it to work on other things. So for the phones, I understand. I'm going to give that to them to make sure that it works well. Right.
But typically, just as, again, somebody who works on, or not works on, but works with an Android phone on a regular basis, like it's not like iOS where they update and they release patches and it just goes out, right? Because Apple is the sole proprietor of iOS, right? They're the ones who control all that. It doesn't work like that with Android. It typically takes 9 months from the release of the new OS to get it on an Android phone. Like, so theoretically we could get Stadia, right, on my Samsung. But if I do, it's all up to Samsung how long that takes. And when Google gives it to Samsung, that's the issue, is that there's all these trading information in hands, and because Android's open source, so anybody can use it, based on my understanding. So, but I don't know. I have concerns.
I could see them trying to get quick though, you know, because it is up to Stadia how quickly they move to get that to Samsung. Do you know what I mean?
Right. And for Samsung, it would be a big deal because then they could, because they're the ones who really beef with Apple and iPhone than anybody. Like LG doesn't really go after them. Pixel doesn't really go after them. It's mostly just Samsung and Apple that have beef. But that would be a huge deal for them. So I'm sure they're like, hey, we want to get this running on our phones as soon as possible because it's a big win for us to have it, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. The family sharing thing is a really big deal to me. Excuse me. Because the people that are going to want to adopt this might be gaming households. Like, I know we don't talk about this often, but there are people who have roommates and live together that all play games, you know? And so what, you're going to have to buy how many copies, you know, or you're all just going to have to use the same account and hope there's save states in a game.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Like those are the type of people I think that are going to, I thought about this because of, we were talking about this earlier, but I went to GameStop to buy Star Wars. And when I did, there were these two gentlemen in front of me that were getting the pre-release for Pokemon. And they just happen to be roommates, and they apparently also happen to do a podcast, and you know, so they're like a gaming household. They have a collective of roommates, and they all live together, and they all play games together. And it's like this would hinder them from all being able to play on Stadia. You know what I mean? So I don't.
Hey, Mike, I'm looking at your outro, and it says insert Chris's name. Chris's name is Chris.
Yeah,
that's stupid.
It's because I have it as like a base template thing where it's like host, and I just replace host with whoever's doing that day. That's
just so funny. I insert Chris's name.
Yeah,
just in case you didn't know, Chris's name is Chris.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Anyways, do you have anything really at the 4K HDR thing? I have a problem with because of Chrome. Like if you have an Ethernet connection to a computer, why can you still not run 4K? Because the Chromecast doesn't have an Ethernet port, right? So it has to run on Wi-Fi.
I actually don't know. I don't own a Chromecast. I have the first one I'll ever have is coming with my with my Founders Edition.
I'm pretty confident that the Chromecast Ultra doesn't have an Ethernet port, but I could be wrong on that. Because I had the original version of the Chromecast and it didn't come with one. It just had was a micro USB port to power it. Let me take a look here. I'm not seeing anything that indicates it has a USB port. So I think it's Wi-Fi only. So, which is weird because the whole point of the Ultra was that you can stream in 4K. Like you can stream content in 4K. So you can already stream video content and all. So there's no Ethernet port. It just exists basically. So I don't know. We've talked about that before with the Wi-Fi and blah, 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 and all that. Is there anything else out of here? I know you said the Buddy Pass in particular was a real
it's disappointing.
Point. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand. And I don't understand the Chromecast update thing. So I don't know. All of this seems very confusing to me as clearly you're not ready. And I feel like maybe you should have communicated that better before you took everybody's money. You know? Yeah. I don't think people would have as big of a problem if you hadn't already taken their money. It very much feels like the Vita thing where it's we'll take all your money in pre-orders and by the way, you have to buy a $50 memory card. It's shady, you know? It's not a good way to keep trust with people. But do you have anything else you want to say about it? Because in ambassadors, you're the only one getting Stadia, so we're relying on you for, how that goes.
Let you know how it works. Yeah. No, I think I'm good. I don't have my Founders Edition yet. Oh.
Yeah. When does it launch officially? Sometime this week, right? Or do you not know?
The 19th, I believe. Which means I'll probably get it on because they said that it's being shipped on in the order they came in, the request came in for pre-orders. So I don't know. I'm not counting down the days. I'll just wait and it gets here when it gets here.
Fair enough. Maybe sometime this week.
Yeah, anyways. Probably. So take us on to our favorite games journalist.
Oh boy, Jason Schreier is back and he has more things to tell you. This time about Anthem. So he's done a lot of Anthem stories this year, but they're all pretty good. So let's get into what he has learned and what he has to say. So according to the sources that recently spoke with Schreier, BioWare is planning a No Man's Sky, Destiny Taken King-like overhaul of the game. BioWare and EA have reportedly been planning this for months. Remember, the game was released 9 months ago at this point, roughly. And some within the program internally are calling it Anthem 2.0 or Anthem Next, kind of playing on that No Man's Sky theme. The developer hasn't decided on many factors, including when it will release, how it will be released, whether it's an expansion, multiple updates, or a quote new game. What changes what changes will be made to the game, including differences in mission structure, what loot, and how the world is built, level design, basically. Those familiar say that they are likely not to charge full price to Anthem players if they do go down a paid route.
I'm just going to start right now. I will not. No, it's fine. I'm not going to go on a rant. I've gone on many rants before. I will not be paying for this update.
Right.
I bought the base, a $60 game for something that was not even close to worth $60. Right. So there is no way that I am willing to. The joke I made earlier, I will not have Anthem go or BioWare go, hey, we released this game at $60 and then I played it. Okay, now we fixed it. So now pay for this and it'll work and it'll work well. No, I'm not going to buy something that's bad only to have you fix it and charge me for it.
Right. I'm in agreement with you on that. And we talked about this
there was
earlier.
Game to play with Destiny. Right. Destiny had a game foundation, had gameplay, had a decent story.
Right.
The story's super quick. There's not many gameplay aspects.
Right. And they added raids, they added in strikes, and all that stuff eventually came to the base version of the game, even before the expansions hit.
Yeah. So no, I will not be paying for anything for Anthem.
Right. And Destiny also constantly evolved, and they constantly were like, hey, here's what's happening. And they communicated that with their base. And like, sure, because you and I were heavily involved in Destiny for a very long time. And then I kind of fell out around the time of Taken King. And that's the major difference. But there's people that are going to be like, oh, but what about it's just like Destiny? And it's like, no, it's not even the same scenario at all. It's the game didn't have a solid foundation at all built to build upon. Like at least Destiny had that. Like what you could say about Destiny was it was short. Maybe it's not the best in terms of story. It has some missing ends, blah, 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 blah. But at its core, it's fun to play. Like shooting is fun.
Why don't we think of this more compared to No Man's Sky? Because No Man's Sky, I think, is No Man's Sky is the poster child for this. If any of you recall, No Man's Sky released with huge expectations. In fact, I think more so than Anthem.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There were huge expectations for No Man's Sky, thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a space exploration game. This game's going to go down in history. Like it's going to be amazing.
Right.
And we got it, and it flopped really hard.
Yeah.
People showing up the very next day, because I had to go to GameStop for something else. And there was a line when it released, a line of people buying it. And when I went back in, there was a line of people returning it or trading it in because they were like, this is not
what I expected. Yeah.
Yeah. So what they did, they didn't charge for their update, did they? I don't think they did.
They haven't charged for anything. They charged entry to the base game. And then technically they did charge for Xbox, but what it was is they were releasing the game on Xbox. So it was released with that update, whatever it was.
Buying the game itself is one thing. But they didn't charge
it at
for
a
their
new game price. Yes, at the original price. PlayStation, they didn't.
People who bought it after the update paid the same price that the people had paid pre-update.
Yeah, basically.
Is what I'm trying to say, which is good. Yeah. They're like, hey, we get that we released this game and you guys all like it we didn't deliver, so we're going to fix it and update it. And you guys, if you own No Man's Sky, great. Guess what? You have it now. You have this updated game. That is the way to go. And now it has I haven't gotten back into it, but I know that the game is doing way better than it was. And it has a really big following.
Right. I have a hard time still getting into it for core, but what you and I played that first day on launch is not the same game it is now, not by a long shot. It's two totally different games. Just like you could say Destiny 2 now is very, very different from what Destiny 1 is. But to keep on point, you're right. This is more of a No Man's Sky situation where it completely failed to meet expectations. And then it also had a lot of performance issues and just a lot of what happened is that we were expecting one thing and we got another thing.
If we're calling them performance issues, then Anthem needs Viagra created by God in order to make this thing even worth. Yeah, No Man's Sky had some technical issues at launch. I think it crashed like 3 times in a day in the first few hours. And I played it on the PlayStation when I got it. So Anthem has a lot of issues. And the thing is, it doesn't even feel like No Man's Sky was rushed. It just felt like it wasn't. The developers had a different thing in mind than what we had in mind, and there was just this discontinuity in expectations.
Well, there was also disconnect in information. If you go back, there's a lot of stuff that's in the game now that Sean Murray talked about before launch, but it wasn't there at launch. Yeah. So maybe they should have communicated their plans better. But
as for Anthem, we've read, ironically enough, from Jason Schreier, we read about how Anthem's development was an absolute shit show, that no one knew. People who were working on the game did not know what they were making.
Right. They were just making assets. And they were like, okay, well, here's a rock. Here's some trees. Like, I don't know what we're doing with this, but all right.
Anthem is in a lot of ways a way worse situation than No Man's Sky was. And it's going to take a lot more work to get it out from where it is now.
Right. And I think the big difference between the No Man's Sky and Anthem is that, first of all, EA should be able to fund this, right? Period. End of story. They make enough money. They should be able to fund this overhaul. whereas No Man's Sky was not nearly as expensive, but what it was is that they got a new publisher, and that money helped them turn stuff around.
Yeah.
So because I think technically it's published on PlayStation by Sony, and then on Xbox it's published by 505.
Yeah, it was a free exclusive for Sony, wasn't it?
Basically, they help fund development, and that's
okay. So
that's my understanding. I think they gave them some money and marketing resources, and that's how the deal worked out. But I think No Man's Sky is owned by Hello Games. I think they actually own the IP. But my point is that with No Man's Sky, it was like, okay, let's shut up, let's make something really good, and come back when we're ready.
Yeah, and they did,
and it worked. And BioWare has been very quiet. They shut everything down. They haven't communicated anything, so it's possible that they come back and they do something.
They've been
really
communicating. Good. It's just been sad. I don't remember. I think it was their game lead or someone said, "Hey, we're working on stuff. Don't worry," and then left.
Yeah, I do recall.
And then left the company, and so they're like, okay."
No, as he was leaving, that's what it was. As he was leaving, Anthem. They have cool stuff going on. They have plans. I think that's what it was.
He a few weeks before he had put out a thing.
Well, a lot of people left since then. So
yeah, he put out a thing saying, "Hey, we're working hard to try and get this game where we want it to be," and then
he just left.
He left a few weeks later.
Wow.
So
that's terrible.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
The paid route is not the way to go.
Yeah, it's not going to work. That's going to create a huge issue.
Destiny 2's Taken King, I think, is a little too different because,
right.
Well, I guess it depends what it ends up being. Because Destiny 2, it fixed a lot of issues, but they were able to charge for it because it was also a game expansion.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. But the things that happened, the big structural changes that Taken King brought were an update, right?
Yeah.
And then the content itself, all of the new stuff was in the expansion.
Well, I feel like what we paid money for was the new content. And then, they just needed to overhaul Destiny in order to make it work.
Right.
In order to make it work well. And No Man's Sky needs that. Not No Man's Sky, Anthem needs that.
Right.
If I might be willing to pay for it if I saw them go, okay, not only have we fixed all these issues in the game, but guess what? We also gave you two or three entirely new areas to explore that aren't just those woods outside of Fort Tarsus. You have these huge new areas to go explore. Give us more. If you're going to charge us, you should not just be fixing it. You should be
expanding upon it significantly. Yeah. I would agree with that. Because with Taken King, you got a whole new planet and a moon, or no?
No, you just got the Dreadnought, but it was
that's what it was.
It was the new. You got new activities though too,
right? But it was the equivalent of a new planet, basically.
A new explorable area. Yeah,
right. So and to be fair, that place is pretty big. It's not just like a small place. Yeah, it was a cool map. So I think I'm in agreement with you. If they charge, they need to really come out and be like, okay, let's explain this better. There will be an update that will fix all of the structural problems. And then here is this thing, if you want to pay for it, that expands upon the game even further. But basically, Anthem as you know it is different completely. That's what I'm hoping for if they decide to do this. But it sounds like they're just in the very preliminary stages of doing this. Like, again, no offense to them, and correct me if I'm wrong, with Taken King, that came out roughly a year after or 2 years after.
Came out a year.
Okay. So it's already been 9 months and they still don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. They're just now
figuring out what they're doing.
Let's
they're in the preliminary stages of figuring out what they're going to do. Which means to me, that doesn't bode well to me, because then it's like, okay, this is going to be very confusing because you have to look at BioWare's, right? Like, they're working on Dragon Age. They're apparently also working on a new Mass Effect that came out recently as a leak. So the same studio is working on Anthem, Dragon Age, and Mass Effect. There's not enough people. Like
BioWare magic.
Yeah, BioWare Magic again. We're back to the same bullshit that happened in the first place. Like, what? Now, to be fair, the Mass Effect thing is like very preliminary. They're like, you know what I mean, having meetings and storyboard, and they're doing like very, very beginning level stuff from what the rumors were. But I don't, you have to come out and launch big like Destiny, Taken King, or like No Man's Sky. I think No Man's Sky would be a better route for them, especially since it's in EA access. Like we were talking about it earlier. That would just be the way to do it. Be like, look, all right, look, we fixed Anthem. If you want to buy this new expansion, you can buy it for whatever. Even if they made it reasonable, I think people would buy it. Like if it was like $20, right? Or something like that. And you're like, okay, look, you can play Anthem now for $5 at EA Access. And then if you really like it, you can pay 20 more bucks and get the expansion. And everybody else who bought Anthem already, either just give it to them or sell it for even cheaper, like $10. Because if it was $10, more people would be way more willing to buy it.
I am still not willing to buy it if it just fixes the game. Well, right. I guess you could argue there's more that needs to be done than just fixing includes the story and everything.
Right. Everything about Anthem is basically like it is what Destiny could have been, or what people really complained about Destiny. That's what they made Destiny sound like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, but we've seen now that D1 was amazing. Vanilla D1 was amazing.
I have fond memories of vanilla Destiny 1. I have horrible memories of just watching presentations about Anthem. Like I remember the E3 where they're like, we're going to reveal Anthem, and they showed a cinematic trailer, and then they were like, we're going to talk about Anthem for 30 minutes now. I was like, this game's fucked. Like
you called it. Right. You called it. You said, dude, no, I don't have a good feeling. I think this is going to be horrible. And
we've seen this before. We know that if you're just showing concept art and you're not showing the game, there's probably something weird going on with it. Now, to be fair, sometimes that doesn't happen. Star Wars is a good example. The new Star Wars game that came out, they didn't show a lot. That made me worried, made a lot of us worried, but it's good. So sometimes it works out, most of the time not. But I think I've had enough of talking about Anthem if you're good. Unless you have anything else you feel like we didn't cover.
Let's move on. No, let's move on.
Okay, good.
Fans in Japan offer criticism after Death Stranding's Famitsu cameos are found. The game received a perfect score from the Japan outlet, a rare case, as only 25 other games have received a perfect score from them in their entire publication history. And those in Japan wonder if the cameos in the game and the relationship they have with Kojima could have influenced their review on the game. And tell us about this Famitsu cameo.
So the short version is the gentleman that is featured is essentially the Steve Jobs of Famitsu. He's the highest level executive at their parent company. So he's not even CEO of Famitsu. He's like the head of publishing or something at the parent company of Famitsu. So he's high up there. But he, again, is like the Steve Jobs. He's equivalent. He is the face of Famitsu. That's what people associate with as a human being, Famitsu. And so him being in the game leads people to kind of ask, hey, like, is there some favoritism? It's like with the IGN and game review stuff, when they give good reviews to bad games, people are like, are you getting money for this? Like, something about this just doesn't really seem right. And that's kind of where the Japanese audience is at. Famitsu, for the sake of conversation, is 33 years old. So they've only given 26 perfect scores in 33 years. That's less than one a year. So I think it's a fair... the reason why I included this story is because I think it's a fair criticism, because we talk about not only journalism and press all the time for games specifically, but just the way that when you're covering news, you need to like ride the line a little bit so that you can have trust with your audience. And if you don't have trust in your audience, why are they going to go to you? It's the only reason they come to you in the first place, especially if you're a news review site. They come to you for subjective opinions based on objective facts. So with this, I don't think it's an issue personally. I don't think it's been that way. The reason why I believe that is because of the 26 other games that have only received perfect scores. That to me actually indicates that they're not willing to give perfect scores out very often. And And I do think that Kojima's cultural relevance is a lot bigger in Japan than in America. So I think maybe there is a Kojima, like, in quotes, effect. I don't know if you've heard this term going around lately, but there's like the PlayStation effect, the Nintendo effect, where like if a brand is associated with it, sometimes it gets higher scores than maybe it deserves, people feel like. Which I think may be fair in terms of Death Stranding. I've played it. I wouldn't say it's a perfect game. I haven't beaten it, but based off of my early enough impressions, I would say I'm like 6 to 10 hours in. I wouldn't say it's a perfect game. So I could see why that argument would be made. So that's the big reason I included it this week, is because it's a weird situation. It's not something we've really talked about. Just like, if you include people from press in your games, does that hinder the publication's ability to review it fairly?
I mean, Kojima's an artist.
Right.
You can tell that he thinks of himself as an artist. The games he releases and this and that. I don't think that he would feel the need to go up to someone and say, "Hey, you can cameo in my game if you give it a perfect score."
Yeah, that doesn't sound like something he would do.
And also, if this game has only given 25 perfect scores in their entire publication history, it doesn't happen often. So what makes you think that their values would all of a sudden change now?
Yeah, that's my point. Like the 25 other games really signals to me that they are very, very hesitant on giving a perfect score. Because as we covered, 33 years. Do you know how many games they reviewed in 33 years? Thousands, I assume, because they've been covering games since the NES era. And, there's how many games that come out now, even on a weekly basis. So
yeah,
that indicates to me that, okay, 26 out of probably thousands, that's a really low percentage. If they were getting bribed, they're not doing a very good job of keeping the bribery business going, So I think it's a fair criticism to have. I don't think, like you mentioned, that was the intent, but I could see why somebody would think that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of distrust in media in general. And so you have to, again, we try to ride that line with people and be like, hey, look, this is just our opinion and this is what the fact is. And I think in this case, Famitsu proves that that's the type of outlet they run. Personally,
yeah,
that's just my belief, though.
So I think that we have hit that on the head. Let's move on to our last topic, Michael.
This one actually, I'm going to read, but you would be more of the expert in it. It's an Apple-related story. We don't talk about Apple much because they don't really do much with games, but here we are. So Apple is reportedly working on a VR and AR headset, 2-in-1. The company is looking to make the headset with a focus on gaming, watching video, and virtual meetings. The headset has been said to be planned to be released between 2021 and 2022, with a lightweight pair of AR glasses releasing in 2023. Reportedly, the company wanted to release the headset this year, but pushed it back. Some believe that's for the iPad Pro release. They figured it might just be too much at once. The iPhone and iPad engineering teams are working to connect applications and software features into a new operating system, internally dubbed ROS. So does this interest you at all as a Apple person?
Not really. Their only push in the gaming world has been like PC or iPhone games, and they have their little monthly service, right, to have access to those. I think.
Yeah, I think it's called Apple Arcade or something like that. Yeah,
It's Apple Arcade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see, at least for me, a use.
Right.
But that's just me. Maybe this should have been in the updates.
Yeah, maybe. I thought it was something I could include in terms of you being able to have a conversation about it, just because you're more integrated in that ecosystem than I am. Versus because we know how Apple's whole thing is connectivity within its ecosystem. So it might be cool that you're like, okay, this is going to be a slim portion of people, right? But hypothetically, whatever, you're on your phone and you're having a FaceTime call or whatever, and you're like, okay, you're having a meeting or something that requires a more in-depth field view, right? And you're like, okay, I need something more than my phone. You're on your way home. You get home. You're like, okay, look, I need to see what's going on in this room or whatever's happening. And you can pop on your VR headset, boom, you're automatically connected into whatever room, you're talking to with the person in the on FaceTime, because that's kind of how Apple makes things work. That could be kind of cool, but like, again, for us as gamers, I'm not really sure this hits, but I don't really think it's intended for us.
No, it's not. Definitely.
Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting because I think we discussed, I don't know if you and I have discussed, but did we discuss the rumors of the PSVR 2? The updated version, the patents and all that? Okay, great. So I think that's what you're going to see is these VR AR 2-in-1s going forward. I think that's just kind of how you have to do it, because Microsoft has the HoloLens, right? Where's that? I haven't seen anything about that in forever.
And doesn't Google have Google Glass too?
They did at some point. I don't know if it's still a thing that they're doing, but I haven't heard anything about it in years. The last I had heard about it, people tried it and were like, oh, it's okay, but like there's not really much to do with it. And people had issues with, because Google Glass came out around the time of like people starting to get concerned about their privacy and like being spied on. So
one of the most common things that shuts ideas like this down is the commercial use.
Right.
Is that people are like, hey, this is a really cool thing. But then you go and look at it and you're like, but how can we commercialize it? Like,
right.
How can we sell this? Why would people buy this kind of thing? Like, because there is some really cool technology that people have developed.
Right.
But they can't commercialize it. So they just kind of die.
Right. FYI, Google Glass still exists for some reason. They also updated it and made one that's like safety glasses, like industrial grade glasses. Where they like completely cover your eyes, and they have the Google Assistant attached to it. So that's kind of cool. But again, I haven't heard anybody talk about it in a very long time. So apparently these glasses are really expensive. One version is $1,500. So I don't know about that. Knowing Apple, at least it'll look cool. If I know anything about Apple, it'll look cool, and I'm sure it'll have like some good uses.
Maybe it'll look like Kanye West's new shoes that look like the Starship Enterprise on your foot. Did you hear me?
Can choose to have VR versus specifically having to have VR.
I think you cut out for a sec because I couldn't hear you.
Oh, my bad. I can repeat. So basically, my point is that Apple creates really cool tech. So I'm sure it'll be a cool piece of tech. I'm sure it'll work well and work well within their ecosystem. But as I've had VR for so long, I got PSVR at launch. I find myself really wanting experiences where I can choose to have VR versus having to be forced to use. You know what I mean? Like Resident Evil 7 was a good example. Sometimes I'd wear VR and sometimes not. And I think those are the types of experiences as gamers we kind of go forward with, because like you can only spend an hour or two in a VR headset. And typically we play games longer than that. At least I do, you know what I mean, in a session. So, but that's pretty much all I got to say on it. It'll be interesting to see going forward, but I don't think it's for us, but I figured we mention it.
Yeah. So I think that's it for us. Try and check us out at least once a week. That's how often we try and do this. You might like what you find. I'm Ambassador Chris.
And I am Ambassador Michael.
And we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, friends.
We're gone.